gonna go ahead and get started. I'm Teresa Gamo, the superintendent here at East Noble. If you have not had an opportunity to meet with me yet, thank you for coming for the evening. We appreciate it. We are here to talk about what the state of our corporation is, what's happening in our schools, what progress have we made. And so we're going to be hitting finances first. We're going to hit academics and our strategic plan and the progress that we have made over the last year. So we're going to first start with finances, and Mr. Leach is going to share all of that information. Yay.
Finances.
Something worked.
So we'll start with the 2024 budget. This is the current budget that we're operating off of. The education fund is set $26 million, just under $27 million. The operations fund is $8.8 million. Our debt service fund, which currently is paying for the Transportation Technology Center, and then we have the referendum debt, which is the middle school. So that's the current budget. We just advertised. The board adopted the 2025 budget. It has been sent to the state from the DLGF for approval. Typically, they get back to us mid to late December. It used to be February, March. So for many years since I've been here, you're spending out of a budget that you don't have approved yet. So the DLGF state has made some improvements, and for the most part, they get it out just before the beginning of the year. So this slide here shows kind of our enrollment, some of our population. The tall bars, you can see a steady decline. This goes over a number of years, starts in 2007, goes to 2024. You can see a pretty steady decline over the past several years for our total enrollment. The orange here is our free and reduced. Notice it stayed, pretty steady for a period of time, but dropped off over this last year. The reason for that is because we went and free meals for the whole corporation. So Roger, our food service director, went through a pretty big initiative in order to get that to happen. When that happens, there's not as much of an incentive to apply for free and reduced. So there's less applications being filled out. Along with free lunches, the state said, hey, we're no longer going to allow you to charge for book rental. We're going to subsidize that through the state. So with the loss of, well, I won't say loss, but with parents not being able to pay book rental, schools not being able to charge it, and free lunches, there really isn't much of a benefit. But there is, because if you apply and if you qualify still, there are still benefits in the summer. The state passes out some EBT cards through SNAP, TANF, I believe, that has some money on it to help feed kids over the summer. So there are still some perks and benefits to that. The form is now called a household income verification form. It is on our website. It is part of our registration process. The importance of filling that out and still trying to get people to qualify or apply is because some of our federal funding, majority of our federal funding is tied to that free and reduced application, or that free and reduced population. So all of our Title I is Title I, Title II, Title III, ELL 4 is all tied to that. So as you see our numbers drop, you're going to see our federal funding for those grants drop as well, which is providing additional support to our higher poverty, our higher needs schools. Our special ed population, fairly flat, but you can see it kind of tick up over time, and the last 2 or 3 years it's been a little more dramatic. And then our ELL population, again, very similar to our SPED population. So that's our overall enrollment over the past several years for East Noble. So in order to say, okay, what's happening across the state or what's happening in our area, so this is a report that I can pull. I just have area schools, so I have those that touch our boundaries. I do have Fort Wayne in there. So you can see this goes from 2018, so before COVID, through 2024, the enrollment change. I don't want to badmouth any school corporation, but it is what it is. Lakeland School Corporation from from 2018 to 2024 has lost 18.2% of their enrollment. On the other end, Northwest Allen, if you guys know anything is happening in Fort Wayne, Northwest Allen's been growing for years. They're annexing property, they're building homes, they're building schools, they're just growing leaps and bounds over the past several years and anticipate building more and more schools over the next 10 to 12 years. So they're up 10.71. East Noble, if you can't see us, we're right here, kind of in the middle. We've been down 7.49% since 2018. One thing to note in some of this, not all of these schools have other parochial schools, charter schools, and so forth. Fort Wayne has a fair amount of charter schools, not as many as they used to have, but they do have a fair amount. We have some parochial schools here within our district. There's some in Auburn. So those also are options, and with school vouchers being increased, options where parents have the choice to take their kids where they want to go. So this is from 2021 to 2024. So we're about a year, right, slightly removed from COVID, going to current. Central Noble is down 13.36. Northwest still growing, but not as much as they were. Okay, the other schools aren't growing as much as they were. East Noble, 3.07%. I compare myself to DeKalb Central. In this chart, they were up 1.39%. But it kind of gives you an idea of what's happening around us. I tried pulling it for the state, but that was a little too much going on in those charts. And then this chart, last year to this year, East Noble down 1.29%. Again, Central Noble still down. This is what I do like. DeKalb Central 1.73. I'm pretty good friends with them. We talk about this stuff all the time. We're pretty competitive. We have a lot of fun with it. But that's an area that we are better. Garrett down 1%. Again, Fort Wayne schools not growing near as much as they were. So, number of factors. Parent choice, school choice being one. I believe there are less families are having less kids than what they used to. Less live births is another one. And online. So your online, your union school corporation, your other corporations are taking more and more of those kids online versus being in person. So that's kind of just shows you a little bit of the trend from 2018 to 2024 of our enrollment, also compared to other schools.
Can we ask a question, Brian?
Sure.
Do you know anything about Prairie Heights? They seem to.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was just able to pull this report like a day or two ago, so I haven't had time to really dive into it. Yeah. But I am curious what's happening over there, and why their enrollment seems to be pretty steady, on the uptick. Not a lot, but at least a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Thank you.
So then, as I talk about in our budget presentation, or my budget presentation, this is our assessed valuation over time. Our tax rates are tied right to the assessed valuation. When your assessed valuation goes up, assuming you have spent the same levy or asked for the same levy, your rate will come down. As your assessed valuation goes down, assuming you maintain a steady levy, your tax rate will go up because the money is spread over a larger or smaller distribution range. This compares our assessed value to other school corporations around us, similar to our enrollment. Here we are, right here in the middle, kind of even with Westview, DeKalb. You can see some of the Fort Wayne schools are pretty large, and some of the smaller schools here. The dots really don't mean anything. That just breaks it down, per student or per ADM. But those bars show the total assessed valuation for those school districts. Here's East Noble's tax rates over time. The difference in colors between 2018 and 2019 is when the state changed from the old general fund to the education fund, which had impact with the operations fund becoming combined across replacement, transportation, and capital projects. And then you still have debt service and referendum debt. There are some schools that have other referendum debt, which are located there, but we do not. So some schools have an operating referendum, which we don't. So you can see ours is kind of dove down a little bit over the last few years, but our AV is also going up too. Here's our tax rate compared to the same other schools around us. East Noble, this current year, we don't know what next year's will be yet, but this year we're at 70.8 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. So comparing that to, Garrett, who's a smaller district, they have a higher tax rate, probably because their assessed valuation is going to be lower as well. So this shows us that we're pretty much right, on the lower third. DeKalb is here 80 cents. DeKalb is 10 cents higher than us. So just to give a little bit of comparison of where we stand with our tax rate compared to other area schools. And that's it for finances. Any questions? If not,
They're mesmerized.
you're up, Amy.
My name's Amy Morris. I'm the assistant superintendent here. The majority of my job is curriculum and instruction. So that's what the majority of my presentation's on. I do lots of other things, other duties as assigned, but curriculum is my baby, where I sit. So we're just gonna dive right in. So test scores, last year we brought you just the 22-23. These are SAT scores from, this past spring. So we had the average of 25, the state average is 28, so we're just sitting below that. For English and writing, 50%, so we're above the state average on that, so that's fantastic. Especially for the SAT, it's a very hard test. And then math is just a stitch below. So you can see in the state of Indiana, reading is significantly higher. Our graduation rate has increased. The high school has worked diligently on keeping track of every single student. And so when you think, well, why isn't it 100%? Well, a couple things. Back in the day, to drop out, you had to be 16, and it was a hard dropout. You were going to work somewhere in a factory or wherever. We have kids that go into, say, homeschool or online school, and they leave us. It doesn't necessarily mean that they drop out in education forever. They tell us they're going to homeschool, but then we don't have any other connection to them unless they come back. So it's easier to leave school now. We don't necessarily call it dropping out, but the state right now is sitting around 89-90%. So we're well above. Of course, we want that to continue to grow, but we do a good job of keeping track of those kiddos. This one is amazing. So we have increased from 53% up to 61% for AP exams. And for a student to pass an AP exam, you have to have a 3, 4, or 5. And so we have gone up significantly over the last year. It's always tricky. You have to have special certifications to teach those courses. So the fact that it jumped that high shows the diligence of the high school. So we've talked about this last year, and in my next slide, you'll see this a little bit better. The test used to be called I-STEP, and then they changed it. So we call it I Learn now, and you'll see when it's going to change again. But so then we had COVID, we didn't take it, and then so last year for English language arts, we went from 28.1% to 31.3%. Our goal always is to increase. We know that. When you submit data to the state, when we write school improvement plans and district plans, we stay on there. We want our scores to improve 3 to 5%. So we're close on that one. And then math, it went from 32.4 to 34.6. So again, research shows us that if a student increases their reading skills, it also increases their math skills. You're just better. Your reading ability to understand a math problem goes up. So naturally, we would expect that to go up as well. Okay, so last year I showed you this. I don't know if I have a pointer. I do. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so here's the state average. We were down here. And I told you, not proud of it. We are going to work. I'll tell you how we're doing that in a second. So then this is the test that the kids took in the spring. We did go up, as I said in the last slide. The state average stayed about the same. So we did go up the leaderboard a little bit. I'm not going to lie, we're competitive. So this is not where we want to be exactly. But when you look at districts around us, we obviously want to beat them. I mean, that's just human condition, right? So I'll let you settle in on that for a little bit, but we are moving the ship in the right direction, which is exciting. So this is for English language arts, and this test is given to 3rd to 8th grade students. This is the math one. So last year we came in at 32.4. This year we're at 34.6. Again, we went up, so that's super exciting. The things we're doing are starting to work. I'll let you look at it for a second. Okay, so this is, when you think about, look at the big picture. So one thing that the state does, they continually change the test. So then every time they change the test, all the scores go down. So they changed the test around 2014-15. Then they changed it in 2018. That's when it became iLearn. This is last year, or no, they changed 21. And so they're changing the test next year, and I'll show you an example of that. But when people say education in Indiana is failing, it's not failing. We have a great graduation rate, and our students go on to great universities. We have a high number of kids passing AP tests. So if education was failing, then it would show across the board. This is one test, and I'm not telling you that every kid is on grade level like we want them to, but not everything the state of Indiana is doing is wrong. Do I love this test? No, I do not. It takes way too much time to take, but it does give us a lot of good information about our students. So next year, the test will change from, right now we take one big test in the spring and that's it. Everybody's done. We do it in a week. It's English, it depends on the grade, but it's usually math, English, and then science is in 2 grades and social studies is in 1 grade. So next year they're going to have the checkpoints. So instead of taking one big test at the end of the year, they're going to take them throughout the year. And the first checkpoint will be September to November. So if you're an ambitious school and you want your kids to take that test at the beginning when that test date opens, you can take it then, or you can push it back and take it in November. You get to have 2 chances to pass it. The second chance you can take whenever. So once the window's open, you take the test, your kids take that, okay, we're supposed to get the information back. This is where our kids are struggling, and then we're gonna give them an intervention and we're gonna guide our learning and instruction to meet the needs of that student, okay? Honestly, we're already doing that anyways, because we are constantly assessing our students. It's one thing we do really well here. So that's what that will be. So then we'll do the first checkpoint, the second checkpoint, and the third checkpoint. And the point is to get them to change that instruction as we go throughout the year. Instead of waiting to the very end of the year and having one giant test in 1 week and then waiting, it used to be months, but now weeks to get that information back. By then the year's over and we're like, oh, let's just make it to summer. So this is what the new test will look like. This is 3rd grade. If you go to well, you can look through this, but the Department of Education has all the grades listed, shows the standards that are assessed. Some are more important than others, and that's all reflected in this. And if you ever want to have a conversation about this, buy me coffee and I'll sit and explain the whole thing to you. So what are we doing to move the needle? We're doing a lot. So we have aligned all of our curriculum maps, our scope and sequence, and a scope and sequence just tells us what we're going to teach and when. So you're going to teach short vowel sounds before you teach bossy E sounds. Like there's a sequence to how we teach things. So we have gone through and updated those with the new state standards. We do it basically every year, but there was a huge change this year. We have to adjust them so that they are in line with the new tests. So we're going to make sure that our curriculum and scope and sequence match what the state then is going to test. Because you wouldn't want to teach something that's in the first checkpoint if it's not being assessed and say it's gonna be down the line. So you kind of have to make sure that that's in line. So we joined the Department of Education's literacy cadre. So all of our teachers, K-3, have been trained in the science of reading. All of our instructional coaches have go through training. It's a 2-year commitment. It's been a lot of work. It's been fantastic, but it's a ton of work, but it's all based on the science of reading. And we have changed how we do reading all throughout the district, and we are seeing leaps and bounds. We have full classrooms of kids that are coming out reading on grade level, and that is fantastic. So, oops, I talked with my hands, sorry. So we have also purchased supplemental reading material. So our old reading material wasn't really science of reading based. The state of Indiana said you have to stop using that. So we needed decodable readers. The old-fashioned books that we had, like Dick and Jane books back in the day, well, those work again. So we had to go out and purchase some new ones. We are currently going through a curriculum adoption right now that we will implement next year. So that's all science of reading, that's all state of Indiana. Professional development, we've had professional development, project-based learning, STEM instruction, science of reading. We do big official PD days throughout the year. We have one in a couple weeks. Our big one is on February 14th. There are 75 different classes a staff member can take, and it's the gamut of everything, from health and fitness to mindfulness, just everything. It's fantastic. So we have that, and then our special ed teachers were trained in Orton Gillingham over the summer. That is a science of reading, multisensory approach to teaching phonics. We are doing book studies on the science of reading for my elementary teachers. We have started intervention groups in K-12 all over the place. We've done after-school tutoring all last year, and then we are doing data-driven instructional practices. So teachers are sitting down weekly, looking at their data and making that instruction next week's lesson. So you're constantly adjusting. That is also something that's been super fun. So yeah, that's it. So do you have any questions? Okay, like I said, go ahead.
On the test, I think it's going to be in a 3-part session next year.
Yep. Yes. Some schools opted in to do it this year, and we have, because we joined the literacy cadre and we are trying to get STEM certified this year, which has been a ton of work, we chose not to do that, because if you choose to do that test, you are giving that test and then our 3 tests and then big tests. So that's 7 tests that a 3rd grader could take, and we chose not to do that this year. So, yeah.
A little too much, huh?
It was too much of a good thing.
I want to step back to this really quick because Dr. Corris did a really nice job explaining this. This is every school corporation in the state of Indiana. That's why there's so many different lines. And if that's the test out over time, and what you may take note of, there's a couple outliers way up here, maybe in the 70%, but most of these are 60% and under. So when you see a score for us that is 30, 40%, it makes a little more sense, because even our most affluent schools are only hitting 60%. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what that actually says there. So let's talk about the strategic plan. It's a 5-year plan. We're in year 2. You've already heard a lot of what's going on. We developed a vision and a mission statement. We say the vision before the board meeting this month. I had to stop and think which one. We have the students at the core of everything that we do. We are student-centered here, and we have learning environment and relationships that surround our students. And we talked about being student-centered, that it's not a one-size-fits-all. We do have individual groups going on, like Dr. Corris said. We have a lot of individualized things going on based on the student's reading level. And we're trying to develop students that collaborate and think critically, because down the road, they have to be able to go out into the world and become adults, and if we've got to make sure that we are teaching them beyond just our walls. So we go back to that environment, learning, and relationships. Those were the critical issues that we found each one of these areas needs. And so looking at environment, I have a little key down here, and it's probably pretty hard to read, but if it's a check mark, we're on target. 4 dots, that means we're in progress. Whoops. And if there's a dot down there, it just means we really haven't started, haven't put a lot of emphasis on it yet. But if you can see, we are working really hard to shift those cultural values. We have a lot of environmental work that goes on. Our administrative staff is just stellar at making that happen. And they're always looking at data. Mental health, we need a little work on that. Had a collaboration with Parkview, and unfortunately the grant ran out, so we're kind of going back to square one on that. Environment also, we had discipline, and we had some poverty instruction there, because with great poverty comes great needs, and so we need to make sure our staff is well aware of how to handle that. But up in the discipline, we've worked really, really hard at consistency across all schools and what it looks like in one, even right down to our forms. So that is a major part of what we have been doing, is consistency. We still have some work to do on our poverty pieces, but each one of the home visits was one of those, and our new teachers for the last 2 years have actually toured our entire attendance area, so they can get a good pulse on what our community actually looks like. Whoops, did I go too far? Nope. Learning. Dr. Kors really kind of went over a lot of that and what we are already doing, so I'm not gonna reiterate that. We do provide a lot of professional development for our staff to make sure their needs are met. And if we find holes, we try to figure out how we can provide that some way to them. We also have motivation, STEM certification. We are on target to become STEM certified, we believe, by 2025. There are some rubrics that we have to fill out to get ready for the state. I know that Dr. Kors was working with principals, starting to work through that process, and hopefully in the spring, that will happen. Unfortunately, they changed the rules on us right in the middle of the game as we were going through this. As always, we get that a lot of times with the DOE. But we are adaptive, which you saw tonight. We learn to adapt whatever we need to do. So, and we already talked a lot about professional development. There's a few things that the teams that came up with this have suggested, and we haven't gotten to that point yet where we're working on those, but we'll be working on those soon. Relationships, that's very important, we know, and parental involvement. And if you haven't noticed, we have a new app called Parent Square, and we have had so much response from that, not just from parents, but teachers as well, how much they really like it. Great communication tool. I think it has helped tremendously. Parents are really appreciative on all the different information that keeps coming out from their schools, and they love seeing that. So we know the declining enrollment is an issue. We did create a survey that is an exit survey for anybody who leaves our school corporation, so we know why they're leaving and we can really monitor that. So we look at that data. We have not started the videos. We did them with students. We have not done them with parents yet. So staff sustainability, I'll get that out. We have worked on some, and I'll tell you about those as we go through the next couple slides. We have had accomplishments that we have, and for staff, this was one group. We have added a middle school counselor this year, so the caseloads are a lot lower and they can be a little bit more intimate with the kids as far as in timeliness and being able to get back with them and meeting their needs. We added 2.5 nursing staff positions. We did not have a nurse in every building. They were trying to share. It wasn't going really well. And we wanted to make sure that our administrative staff was not having to work in that nurse's office instead of having a nurse there full time. Instructional aides, we have offered them insurance, and they never had that in the past. And then we have annualized their pay as well. That was a request from them. We listened and we're able to provide that for them. Students, we have added an additional ag class at the high school. We've added a lot of clubs, and I didn't have them all on there, but those are some of the clubs that we have added. We have 4th grade LifeWise Academy. We have the new ALC pathway. We have the East Noble Academy that is currently being built. We just had a groundbreaking for that last week. And we have provided a lot of instructional supplies and equipment for the arts. If you notice up there, we just recently spent $160,000 on our arts, and that was desperately needed. And so we are very excited about getting them some of the things that they need. Robotics and STEAM, always working on those. And then we did add 2 full day pre-K classes this year at Rome City and at Northside. For the community, we're going to have Principal for the Day on October 30th. We have 3 legislators coming. One of our people sitting in this room, Mr. Leedy, is going to be at one of our buildings. So some people in the community as well, just to come in and learn about our schools and share great things. We have so many good things happening, and we want to get the word out that there are a lot of great things. We also have a town hall meetings. We'll have one in December and one in the spring. Frequently asked questions. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at that, when questions come in, we try to answer those on there very quickly. And we already talked about Paris Square. We have increased our marketing presence. If you haven't noticed, Brock back there at the back, wave Brock. He's amazing at what he does. He puts out a lot of stuff just to try to help everybody know what's going on in our schools. So we've also changed our work sessions. We no longer go into a different room. We have discussion on our agenda at our board meetings. Board packets are posted prior to our meetings. Record request form is available. We also have a request to move materials form. English, high school English syllabuses are posted now in advance. We also have started the East Noble Education Foundation. We now have 7 board members. We are able to start collecting funds, so maybe we might be knocking on your door sometime soon to donate, and that's all to support our teachers and our students and projects going on in our school. And we also have the East Noble Alumni Association. We're trying to get that off the ground, and we will be putting in place an ambassador program this spring. Hopefully over the winter time, we'll get that all together. So we know we're a work in progress. We talked about STEAM last year and exploring our backyard, and what that meant was we were going to focus all of our STEAM efforts and our partnerships in Noble County. So there's lots of opportunities, not just for our students, but our staff. We want to make sure that when our students leave us, they know Noble County. They know what opportunities are here, and they know what we have to offer, and they come back to us. So STEAM curriculum development happened all over the last year. Dr. Kors worked with teams of teachers, coaches, support staff, a STEAM consultant, central office administrators. Lots of people were involved in this. We had to have a roadmap. Where are we going? And so that was created last year. And we are right now in the process of taking a deeper dive with some of our partners. And right now we have over 107 partnerships. And the principals help put all this together and try to figure out what are we actually doing, what partners are we using. They did an amazing job logging in on a spreadsheet so we actually know where we're at. And we have internships, we get STEAM supplies, we get STEAM activities from them. We have field trips with some of these. We have guest speakers, and we actually purchase products from many of them because we want to give back. We don't want to just take all the time. But we have 2 of them in place right now, one with the Windmill Museum that the students will be taking field trips. They'll be learning what these windmills can do for energy-wise, and they will be bringing some demonstrations into the classroom. We're really excited about that partnership that's starting to happen, and we're going to create a visual in our schools so that the students will walk by and know that that windmill museum is part of Noble County. And we're doing the same thing with craft. We're working, the high school team is working on environmental science. They are building a water treatment plant, and we want our kids to be involved in that. We've already had that conversation on how we can go in there and our kids can collect data. We're still have a meeting this next week. Oh, we rescheduled, didn't we? So we're going to be meeting with some of the people from there, trying to figure out how we can mesh that together. So very, very excited about those partnerships. And I just want to invite you to come join us if we're going to go to the town hall meetings at December 3rd. You already had the demonstrations that you got a chance to take part in tonight. So thank you to all our presenters. I know there's still some of you that are